What's up, Huckers? Big Country here, and today we're going to do a test on Salient Discs. Unfortunately, I don't have a Prometheus here, which is their 4th disc, so instead I've got 3. I've got their long distance high-speed driver. It's called the Backdraft, and this is in their liquid plastic. It's a very thick rim, pretty domey, and this is advertised as being slightly overstable. I've got their fairway driver, which is called the Vein. I have this in the cryo stiff plastic, although it's not that stiff. It's got a little bead on the bottom, and this is advertised as being a very overstable, controllable, and glidey fairway driver. And lastly, I have a first run Salient Discs cryo Antidote. This is advertised as being a straight flying mid-range. They say it might be the straightest flying mid-range on the market. We'll see. It's also advertised being very glidey. This is in their regular cryo, not their cryo stiff. So we're going to throw them against some established, well-known discs out here in the field, and then we're going to take them to the course, and we'll see how I like it. First up, we're going to test the Antidote. And again, this is in the cryo plastic. First, we're going to test in a little bit of a tailwind. And we're going to be tested against the ABC Platinum Flying Squirrel, which is also advertised as a really glidey, straight mid-range. And for those of you who've thrown ABC, you know what's up. You can see my bag down there, that's about 350 feet. So we'll see how well these do. First up, Flying Squirrel. That went about 300 feet, maybe 305. It hooked up a little bit in the tailwind because I put a little bit of hyzer on it. Again, keep in mind I'm throwing in Fountain, Colorado, so our elevation here is well over 5,000 feet, almost 6,000 feet above sea level. Your results may vary. Next up, Antidote. Now we're going to throw them into a headwind. As you saw into the tailwind, even with the tailwind and a slight bit of hyzer, the Antidote drifted really far right and it hit a fence before it could come back. But it also went around 330, 340 feet, almost made it all the way to my bag, as opposed to Flying Squirrel, which only went around 300. So now we're going to throw into a slight headwind. We're going to put a little bit of hyzer on them into the headwind and see where they go. First up again, Flying Squirrel. Again, that one went about 300 feet. It was a little low. You couldn't really see the glide. I'm really liking the glide on this Antidote, but I'm not liking how flippy it is. So I might have to put a little more hyzer on it. We'll see. Woo! That went way over 350, I think. We'll have to walk it out. But you could see the glide. The disc just kept carrying, even into the headwind. Even with that amount of hyzer, it started tracking right and just didn't want to come back. Put these on a little bit of an anhyzer angle and see how they glide out. First up, the Flying Squirrel. Alright, what we've noticed with the Salient Discs Antidote is, like I said, it's just a lot more understable than the Flying Squirrel, which is odd because this is a very understable disc. But the thing that's working with this Antidote is it has got a tremendous amount of glide. Each throw is going, and I'm not exaggerating here, you can go back and check the video, 30 to 40 feet farther than the Flying Squirrel, which is considered one of the farthest flying mid-ranges on the market. So this thing just crushes. Feels like a mid-range, almost flies as far as a fairway driver. When we put them on the Anheuser angle, the Flying Squirrel at this elevation started to fight out a little bit, and the Antidote just held it and just kept on gliding. I'm serious, this is just so much farther than the Flying Squirrel. It's a little uncontrollable, and now I've had this for about 4 months. These other Salient discs I just got. But this one I've had for about 4 months, so I've been able to work with it a little more and kind of dial it in. I didn't like it at the beginning, and it doesn't really fit my bag. But it's a great mid-range, as you can see, just carries forever, and would be great for beginners or people who really need a very understable mid-range. All right, the last test we're gonna do with these mid-ranges is I'm gonna put them on a huge scoop hyzer, also known as an ultimate Frisbee hyzer. And we'll see how hard they hold this angle. First up, Platinum Flying Squirrel. Dang. Not what I expected, but it flew way over the fence. Well, what we found is the Salient Discs Antidote is definitely more understable than the Flying Squirrel. Even on those big scoop hyzers, like I just did, it came up, flipped to flat, and kept rolling over. Whereas if you saw the Flying Squirrel, it came out, flipped to flat, and just cruised. That is the only shot where the Flying Squirrel gets more distance than the Antidote. The Antidote, I love the plastic. The cryoplastic feels great. It feels almost like old school CE plastic from Innova. It's a great disc for beginners, especially if it comes in lighter weights. This is a 172. If you get a really lightweight one, it'd be great for kids, people who don't have a lot of arm speed. It'd be the perfect mid-range for them to be able to flip flat, and they can still get an understable shot out of it. It's not a power-friendly disc. As you see, I like to put a little into my throws. I'm a stocky guy, I don't have long arms, so I gotta use power. And the Antidote and I just do not agree. So if you're a high-powered flip player, I'd skip this one. If you're a finesse player, it's good. I'd compare it almost to a Comet. It's a little more understable than a Comet, but it's in that same realm of finesse shots. If you're throwing with fan grip most of the time, this might be the disc for you. So that's my field review of the Antidote. We're going to take it out to my local course, Cumberland Green, and we have a 1 dogleg right hole. And we're going to throw the Antidote and the Flying Squirrel on these, see how they do. Alright, next up we're going to try the Salient Vane. This is in their new cryo stiff plastic. Although I'll be honest with you, that first run cryo with the Antidote is a lot stiffer than this. So we'll see. It's got some cool swirlies in the plastic. It's pretty domey, and it's got a bead. Basically, they say it's a glidey Banshee. So we're going to throw it against my KC Pro 11-time Banshee, which is pretty beat in, and a brand new Star Banshee. And we'll see how they do. We're going to first throw them into a little bit of a headwind. We're going to throw them flat. So first up, brand new Star Banshee. I had that one about 3 1/4. Now let's try the KC Pro Banshee. It's beaten a little more, a little gummier, it's got better glide. Alright, that definitely went farther. That went about 350. Now, for the Salient Vane. It's supposed to be really glidey, so we'll see. we found from our initial headwind test is that this fresh Star Banshee is a little more overstable than the Vane, and the Vane's a little more overstable than this beat up KC Pro Banshee. These two have about the same amount of glide. Definitely more glide than this really flat Star Banshee. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go downwind and we're gonna throw these with Anheuser and see how they pan out. First up, Star Banshee. Didn't even hold it a little. We've seen how the Vane and the Banshees do hyzer, or flat, and Anheuser. Now we're gonna throw some sidearm, and then we'll finish off some hyzer shots. So far, I'm sticking with my stabilities. Star Banshee is way more overstable. As you saw when we put on Anheuser, the crazy thing about the Vane is it held it all the way to the ground. It almost turned into a roller. It was overstable enough not to turn into a roller, but it held it all the way to the ground. And the Banshee the beat Banshee fought out the last second. So now we're gonna throw some sidearm. Start with the Star Banshee. Okay. Whew. I hit a disc, I don't know which one I hit. The Salient Vane I'm having some issues with. I really like the beat on it. It feels weird in the hand, the wing, and it just doesn't fit my grip real well. As you saw when I put it on Anheuser, it seemed like it was the most understable of these three. When I threw it with sidearm, it seemed like it was the most overstable. So part of that's user error. I'm just not used to this disc yet. I'm not used to an overstable disc having that much dome, and it doesn't fit my hand very well. So this might not be the disc for me. I do bag Banshees, so call me prejudiced if you want. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna throw these with a little bit of hyzer and see how they do. I'm thinking this Vane is gonna keep up with this Star Banshee pretty well. There's only one way to find out. First step, end of a Star Banshee. Ooh, that went way farther. That just ain't gonna fly, man. I don't know what to think of the Vane. It's in this nice cryo stiff plastic. I really love the plastic. I like the micro bead on it. Gazelles used to have those micro beads, for those of you who've been around for a while. We're going to take it out to the course and compare it against the Star and the KC Pro Banshee. I bag this KC Pro Banshee for its glide. It's still very overstable. It's more overstable than even my Brinster T-Birds. So that's what I use it for, more of a utility disc, sidearms, overhands, glidey, overstable shots. I haven't worked this one in the bag yet. It's still super overstable for me. It's got some flashing issues. The Vane, for me, I don't think would go in the bag. I'm having a hard time controlling it. Now if you have bigger hands, longer fingers, I would say this might be the overstable fairway driver you're looking for. It's got the good glide and bite of this KC Pro Banshee, but as you saw, it can also hold those Anheuser lines. This might be one that you could beat into a couple different stabilities if it feels good in your hand. Like I said, it doesn't feel great in my hand. It's a little bit hard for me to control. The glide on this thing is great. I would not recommend it if you have little sausage fingers like me. Anyone else who doesn't have little sausage fingers, I would highly recommend giving this a try. This might be the overstable fairway you're looking for. So let's take it out to the course and see what we can do with it on a couple of my favorite holes at my local course. Last thing we're going to test is a Salient Backdraft. When you get one of these, the first thing you're going to notice is the amazing amount of dome. I brought this up on several forums and with the Salient people themselves. I have not seen a dome like this since like 1990s discs, like the Phoenix and the Lynx. So that's very unusual. It's got a nice wide rim, feels real comfortable. Again, this is in their liquid plastic. I'm going to be testing it today against a VIP Air Giant and a Star Turn. I think the Backdraft will go somewhere in the middle of stabilities. It's supposed to be slightly overstable. So we're going to start with the Giant, then we'll throw the Backdraft, then the Star Turn. As you can see, that was pretty overstable. So now we're going to try the Backdraft. Again, this is into a slight headwind. Ooh, huge skip. And lastly, the understable Star Turn. Alright, what we've noticed about the Backdraft is that it's fairly overstable at this elevation. It's not nearly as overstable as the Giant, even the VIP Air Giant, which is less overstable than a full-size Giant, but definitely more overstable than the Star Turn. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to put them a little bit of an Anheuser angle as we're going downwind. I'm going to see how well they fight out of it. First up, VIP Air Giant. The wall. Whew. Right at 350. Wow, that's almost 400. As you saw, the turn held that ante all the way to the ground almost, and this thing crushed past my bag, which is marked at 355 from where I was throwing. It went maybe 50 feet past it, so it was a little over 400 feet. These ones went right at 355. The Giant was a little shorter, and the Backdraft cleared the bag by a couple feet. As you noticed, it held that Anheuser angle for a really long time, considering that it's an overstable distance driver, but it did fight out at the end. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to throw these things with a little bit of sidearm. Now, I'm not a great forehand player. I used to be, but I kind of let it get away from me. And for forehand, I really prefer slightly overstable flat discs. So not necessarily the Giant, not the Backdraft or the Turn. So none of these would be my choice for sidearm discs. So we'll see how it works out. Keep in mind my distance as a sidearm thrower, not that great. My form's a little weird. So we'll see how they go. First up, VIP Air Giant. Ooh, that definitely went farther.
Big custom turd.
Interesting. I was actually able to sidearm this pretty well. Not as well as the Turn. The Turn really flipped and cruised for me. Again, the Turn's going 15 to 20 feet farther than these. Part of that is because the Giant's so overstable, and the Backdraft's got such a wide rim. I don't necessarily have the arm speed to get this thing up to the speed that it needs to be. I'd put this at easily a speed 13. I mean, it's about the size of a nuke, and that's just a little too fast for me. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pop these up on hyzer and see how well they hold hyzer lines. The Turn might flip to flat. I know the Giant's almost going to spike hyzer. That's what I use it for. And we'll see how the Backdraft does. So far, I'm really liking it. I like the way it feels. I like the flight. So we'll see. Maybe this will go in the back. First up, Westside Discs VIP Air Giant. Skip.
Nice skip.
Go! So what we found with these distance drivers is that I really like the Backdraft. I've kind of been searching for something that goes in the middle of stability between the Giant and the Turn, and this might actually be it. In the hands of a more powerful or faster thrower, I think this thing could work miracles, even at the elevation that we're at, which makes it more overstable. I don't necessarily know if it's going to go in the bag. I'm going to have to keep trying it, and we're going to go try it out on the course and see how it really does when I can really open up and just sort of try and shape shots with this thing. Really good for as wide of rim it is and how domey it is. That dome's just crazy, but when you have it in this liquid plastic, honestly, you don't even feel it. Your thumb just compresses it down, and that just gives it even more glide. So we're going to take it out on the course. We're going to compare it to my trusty Giant, my trusty Turn, and see how they do. We're out here at my local course, Cumberland Green in Fountain, Colorado. Again, we're a little bit higher. We're almost at 6,000 feet above sea level, and we got some wind. Now, this is a pretty short beginner's course, but I brought along my Salient Discs, and I brought along their comparison brethren. Let's see how they fly. Here's hole 14. It's marked at 240. It's behind those bushes over there on the dog leg right. So we're going to see how our understable mids do. First up, the Antidote. Get it. Ah. As you can see, the Antidote held that ante line perfectly, and I was real close to the basket for an easy bird. Here's hole 13 at Cumberland Green. You see the basket down there? It's at 270. Not something I would generally throw a fairway driver on, but we'll give it a try. We'll bring them out wide, see how these hyzers work. First up's the vane. This is hole 17, and ironically it's one of the longer holes on this course. Like I said, this is a pretty short course. It's scaled out at 324.3 right now. We've got a little bit of a headwind, so we're going to throw the vane and the banshees, see how they do. Ah! We're here at the last hole, hole 18. In its current position, it's measured at 350. This is the longest hole in the course. It can go as long as 405. This is really the only hole in this course that I actually use distance drivers for. We've got a crazy sort of tailwind, crosswind right here, and over here we got a big swamp. So you want to keep it on a big hyzer that doesn't go into the swamp. We'll start off with the liquid Salient Backdraft. So in conclusion, by far my favorite Salient disc, and this includes the Prometheus, is the Backdraft. Even though it's got that wide rim I mentioned, I don't necessarily have the arm speed. It's a great disc. It fits in stability between my Giants and my turn, and I could very easily see this one making the bag. I would rate it at definitely a speed 13, a glide of 5, a turn of -1, and a fade of 2 or 3. That's on Innova scales. And this would be great, especially at lower elevations. The vane, while I love this cryo stiff plastic, isn't necessarily the best disc for me. This one's not going to make the bag. Like I said, I do like the micro bead. It's going to help this disc last for a long time. If you've got long fingers, this could be a real workhorse fairway driver for you if you beat some into different stabilities. But for me, it's not going to make the bag. And lastly, the Antidote. Great turnover mid. It's got a lot of glide. It's very hard to control if you're a power player like I am. So again, for beginners or people who don't have the arm speed, this is the disc to get, especially if you get it in lighter weights. And again, this is the cryo plastic. I love this plastic. This is a great disc to get if you're a beginner or a finesse player. really complements something like a Comet very well. I want to thank Infinite Discs for supplying me with these Salient Discs and a lot of these discs that I compared them to. I hope this video was informative for you. Get out there and huck some discs. Alright, one thing we noticed is that the Flying Squirrel is quite a bit less understable than the Antidote, even though it is understable. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to put these on a little bit of an Anheuser angle. Gesundheit. I'm going to